It's time to talk all things linebackers and safeties as it relates to the Buffalo Bills and the 2022 NFL Draft today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Thursday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, or if you are joining us on the YouTube channel, your first watch every day. Well, we got to talk about a couple of position groups today that I didn't expect to talk about. Linebacker and safety. And so I've done NFL draft primers for the Buffalo Bills for other positions like cornerback and interior offensive line and running back and wide receiver, the top needs that we perceived on this team. But I feel like it's appropriate for us to now include linebacker and safety into this discussion. So we're going to go through my first, second, and third round targets for the Bills at linebacker and safety and do what we did for the other positions in the past, where I'll talk about their size, athleticism, give you a mini scouting report that includes strengths and weaknesses, and then my pro comp. And then, like I've said, with every position primer, a couple of things here. First of all, for the comp, it's a stylistic comp. It's not a career trajectory comp. It's how they play, their body type, their athleticism, and why they win. And then also, as I've always stated, these rankings are Bills specific. So the draft board that you're going to see on the draftnetwork.com will not be the same as this, because scouting in a vacuum versus scouting for a team are very, very different things. And so this is all Bills specific. So before we get into the specific players at linebacker and safety, let's very quickly talk about the need at each position and basically talks about why we're having this conversation to begin with. We'll start with linebacker. Now, the Bills run a 4-2-5 defense with Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds as their primary linebackers that don't come off the field. Matt Milano is locked up long-term. Tremaine Edmonds is playing on his fifth-year option this year, and his contract is up after this season. And so as the Bills roster continues to get more expensive, we have to talk about the possibilities that exist with moving on from players. At some point, it has to happen. And so maybe Tremaine Edmonds is that type of player. Now, I'm not sure I'm fully bought in predictively that the Bills are going to move on from Tremaine Edmonds. All of the messaging indicates that they like Tremaine Edmonds. He's a 3-time team captain, a 2-time Pro Bowler. He's a player that Brandon Beane traded up to get in the first round. I don't feel like there's a whole lot that I can point to that would give me reason to believe predictively that this is Tremaine Edmonds' last year on the team and that they have to replace him, other than this roster is getting expensive and they have a lot of money already committed to Matt Milano, and you start to ask yourself questions about how much more you can commit to the linebacker position. Now, two other things here that I want to mention when we talk about this need at linebacker. A.J. Klein left in free agency, they cut him, and he hasn't signed anywhere else. Now, I'm not saying that A.J. Klein was a key member of the Bills' defense, but two things come to mind. First of all, he was important as a backup to both Milano and Edmonds. Secondly, maybe the Bills do want to play a little bit more base defense, considering you have 3 run-heavy teams in your division in the Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets. The Patriots' bread and butter is running the football. The Jets and Dolphins are inventing their identity as teams that want to run the football with, that Kyle Shanahan influence in both organizations. You look at some of the top competition in the AFC North, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, all those teams want to run the football. The Titans want to run the football. The Colts want to run the football. Then you have the AFC West, which is just a wild situation out there. But I think you can look into this and think maybe the Bills do want to have a bit more base defense and 3 linebackers on the field. And if so, they need that guy. So that's kind of the overall picture that I have right now as it relates to the linebacker position. Now for safety, this really goes back to the Jordan Poyer stuff that we talked about on the Tuesday podcast. He's got a new agent. He's positioning himself for a big contract. The Bills roster continues to get expensive. You start to wonder what type of concessions they'll have to make and if that could potentially be a Jordan Poyer. And so that is the natural angle, but also maybe the Bills want to get cheaper in the secondary. They're paying everybody. Trey White's on a big deal. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Taron Johnson. Maybe this is an opportunity where they have to reset the money a bit in the secondary and also maybe diversify some of the sub packages where maybe you have Poyer and Hyde and maybe you draft a safety to replace Poyer. But also this year, keeping Poyer and Hyde and then having this other safety allows you to be more multiple with your sub package looks. You can put a slot safety on the field. You can just do a little bit more. So that's my thinking when it comes to linebackers and safeties and why we're having the conversation that we're going to have today. And in just a moment, I'll give you my options at linebacker and safety for the Bills in the first, second, and third round. But first, betonline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, let's talk about the linebacker options in this segment. Next segment will be safeties. We'll go first, second, and third round players. In the first round, I just have one player, and maybe more linebackers will go in the first round, but as it relates to the Buffalo Bills and a player that I would be comfortable with them picking at 25, should they decide linebackers the way to go, it's Devin Lloyd out of Utah. 6'2" 3/4, 237 pounds, 33-inch arms. He's an above average athlete. My favorite things about Devin Lloyd, first of all, his passing down ability. He's very good in coverage in terms of dropping into coverage, playing a little bit of man. Zone coverage recognition is terrific, but he's also a really good rush player. You can blitz him, send him through the A-gaps. You can rush him off the edge. He's got a lot of skill and acumen as a pass rusher. So he gives you a lot of value on passing downs in multiple ways. He's a converted safety, so he's got a great feel for coverage spacing. The second thing is leadership. He's known for his preparation, his command of the huddle. He's a 2-time team captain. The coaching staff raves about how much film he watches and how he prepares. And he's been a durable player, hasn't missed any time at Utah. My concern with Devin Lloyd is that the trigger can be a touch slow playing downhill. And that's a tough thing to balance because linebackers are taught slow to Don't commit until you know what you're committing to. And I think there's part of Devin Lloyd that maybe over-embraces that where he keys, he diagnoses, but I just want to see him trigger a little bit faster when playing downhill. My comparison for Devin Lloyd out of Utah, Demario Davis from the New Orleans Saints. Now, I've got several second-round options, 3 of them that I want to get into. First up, Nicolby Dean out of Georgia. There's a good chance he's a first-round player. But I think he's more of a second-round target for the Bills. 5'11" 1/4, 229 pounds, 31 7/8-inch arms. Athletically, we won't get any testing from him, but you watch his tape and you have no athletic concerns. He's a really good athlete on tape. My favorite things about Nicolby Dean, coverage instincts. This guy can play matchup specific in terms of man coverage on tight ends and running backs. And he's got great zone recognition and awareness. Some ball skills to go with him as well. So I love what he brings in space and in coverage, and I love his closing speed. This guy has a fast trigger and can really close down distances in a hurry. He has range sideline to sideline. So he's a really nice coverage player that can run and make an impact in every direction. My concern with Nicolby Dean is size. He doesn't have great length, doesn't have great height. He's got okay weight, but he's not an ideal size player. And that shows up when he has to play through contact. I don't think he's great at stacking and deconstructing blocks. And then there's this issue that him playing on such a great front seven and overall defense at Georgia, what does he look like outside of that? I mean, this guy has 4+ NFL starters in front of him. He's got 2 linebackers next to him that are going to be starters in the league. And there's underclassmen that are going to be studs as well. Nicolby Dean is covered up at Georgia with all this great talent around him. It's a perfect scenario for him to succeed. It's going to be a little more dicey in the NFL where he's going to have a lot more junk to sort through, and players are going to be bigger, and beating blocks is going to be tougher, and making tackles is going to be tougher. I'm interested in how he's going to look outside of the Georgia defense. My comparison for Nicolby Dean is Eric Kendricks from the Minnesota Vikings. Next up, Chad Mumma from Wyoming. I think he'd be a wonderful second-round pick of the Bills. 6'2 3/4, 239 pounds, 31 5/8 on the arm length. You wish those arms were a little longer. He's an excellent athlete. My favorite things about him, processing ability. This guy has instincts, and he knows how to key, diagnose, and get to the football. He is a read and react football player through and through. And that includes downhill against the run, and that includes coverage, right? Zone coverage. He has very good awareness in his zone drops. I like his ability to tackle. I like how he plays downhill. And I like him overall as a space player. I think this guy is a starting Mike linebacker in the NFL all day long. My concerns, you wish he had a little bit more length, and that shows up with his take-on ability of blocks and how he gets off blocks. And I don't think he has a great tackle radius in terms of finishing outside his frame. He's a good tackler. He's a physical player. But there are times where you are fully aware that he has sub-32-inch arms because he can't finish outside of his frame. My comp for Chad Mumma out of Wyoming is the guy that he replaced in the Wyoming lineup, Logan Wilson, who's a good player for the Cincinnati Bengals. Next up, Quay Walker, Georgia. 6'3 3/4, 241 pounds, 32 5/8 on the arm length. He's an excellent athlete. What do I like about Quay Walker? Well, his combination of size, speed, and power. He's big, he's fast, he's physical, and he's strong. He can play in the box and hold his own. He can also play in the overhang, where you get him out in space. He can play from distance. He can cover. He has no physical limitations whatsoever. My concern with Quay Walker is processing. I think his instincts are average. The same thing about Nicolby Dean. What does he look like outside of that Georgia defense? And this guy only started 17 games in college. And so, on one hand, that's an excuse for the slow processing, but it's also a concern because he's got to develop there. My comp for Quay Walker, Kenneth Murray from the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's move on to my third round targets for the Buffalo Bills at linebacker. I've got 4 of these. We'll start with Brian Assamola out of Oklahoma, 6'1", 226 pounds, 32 5/8 on the arm length. He's an exceptional athlete. I like about him. What do I like about him? I like his range. I think in coverage and in terms of run defense, this guy can cover a lot of ground, sideline to sideline. He can get plenty of depth in his coverage drops. He has man coverage ability to carry routes down the seam. This guy's got a lot of range overall. I like that he's an urgent and physical player, and I love his play temperament. This is a guy that gets after people. He's not the biggest, but he's urgent, physical, and brings the fight. He's a tone setter, even though he's 226 pounds. Now, my concerns with Assamola is size, right? You wish he was taller, wish he was bulkier, you wish he had a little bit more length. And then also play strength, where I do think that he does have some issues playing through contact and being a physical tackler in terms of bringing good hitting power to the table. My comp for him, Jerome Baker from the Miami Dolphins. Let's move on to Leo Chanal out of Wisconsin. This is the opposite of the player I just described in Brian Assamola. 6'2" and 5/8, 250 pounds, 31-inch arms. He is an excellent linear athlete. He tested very, very well in terms of explosiveness and straight line speed. My favorite things about Leo Chanal, size, physicality, and linear explosiveness. This guy is a brick house playing downhill. He's going to beat up blocks, and he is going to be extremely physical and powerful with how he tackles. I like his in-the-box instincts. I like his contact balance, and I like his downhill ability overall. And he's got some decent ability in zone coverage to drop and handle some of those shallow zone drops. Now, my concerns with Leo Chanal is his range in coverage. Now, I don't think he's going to be a great option for being a matchup guy in man coverage. He's got some tightness in his hips, and I don't think he has a lot of range in coverage. Right? I think overall his lateral mobility is a bit of a concern. My comp for Leo Chanal, Brian Cushing from the Houston Texans back in the day. Next player, Troy Anderson from Montana State. 6'3.5", 243 pounds, 32 and an 1/8-inch arms. He's an elite athlete, very good athlete. What do I like about him? Well, first of all, he's such a unique player. I've talked about him before on the podcast. His trajectory at Montana State is very unique. 2017, he's a running back. He's the freshman of the year in the Big Sky Conference. In 2018, he's an all-conference quarterback. In 2019, he played linebacker and was an all-conference player. So he received notable accolades in 3 consecutive seasons at 3 different positions that are completely different: running back, quarterback, and linebacker. Now, there was no season in 2020 for Montana State due to the pandemic. And then in 2021, he comes back and he's the Conference Defensive Player of the Year at linebacker. I mean, this guy is rare in terms of versatility. So not only can he play linebacker, but I think there's a case to be made that he should have some opportunities on offense in a Taysom Hill type role where he could throw it a little bit, run it, and create some problems for defenses. And he should be a great special teams player. So you love the unique versatility that exists and the story that exists. He's also an explosive athlete. He's got great range. He's a great tackler. I think he's very good in coverage. And I think he's overall an elite competitor. The concern that I have with Troy Anderson is just instincts. Processing against the run. Some of those things can be issues for him in terms of how he keys and diagnoses plays and gets to the football. You could tell that he's underdeveloped at linebacker, but obviously a high ceiling and plenty of room for upward mobility. My comp for him is Jamin Davis from the Washington Commanders. The last player that I would think is a good idea for the Bills in the first 3 rounds of the draft, Channing Tyndall out of Georgia. 6'1" and 7/8, 230 pounds, 32 and 7/8 in the arm length, an outstanding athlete. What do I like about Tyndall? Size and explosiveness. He's big, he's physical, and he gets after people. He's physical, he's urgent, he's violent. He's a see-ball, get-ball type player that is a tone setter. Now, the concern with Tyndall is experience. Has 0 starts, and he was a rotational player for Georgia. And you could tell that his instincts aren't developed. He is literally a chase and find type player where he's just not a read and react player at this point in his progression. So he needs some time on task, but he's got a really appealing ceiling if he develops into, what he's offering physically. My comparison for him is Baron Browning from the Denver Broncos. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. So give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com and use code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for their best deal of the season, 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions like, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? And wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and save money when using Rock Auto. Why would you choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? They have everything you can need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Make sure you write Locked On in their "How did you hear about us" box so they know that we sent you. They have amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need over at rockauto.com. All right, let's talk about the safeties. We'll give you my first round, second round, and third round options for the Bills. And I have 2 first-rounders, 3 second-rounders, and 2 third-rounders that the Bills should consider if they want to go down the route of picking a safety. We'll start with Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. 6'4", 220 pounds, 33-inch arms. He's an above-average athlete, despite people freaking out that he ran a 4.59 40-yard dash at the Combine. That's a fine time, especially for 6'4", 220. And I think this has naturally brought up some weird concerns about him being a deep ball defender. Well, let me remind you that the best deep ball defender in the history of the NFL was Ed Reed. You know, he ran 4.57. The best deep ball defender in the game right now, Micah Hyde. You know what he ran? 4.56. How about Jarris Byrd, one of the really rock-solid deep ball defenders of the last 20 years? He ran a 4.68. So you can just chill out with your concerns about Kyle Hamilton running a 4.59. That is a perfectly fine 40-yard dash. So what do I like about Kyle Hamilton? He's a complete unicorn in the position. Offers rare versatility. Can play split zones. Can play in the box. Can play in the slot. He's got very intriguing versatility, and his ability to be a defensive chess piece to neutralize offenses that want to attack you with pace and space and try to put you in mismatches. Kyle Hamilton's a neutralizer. Love his ball skills, love his coverage instincts, and I love his ability to trigger from deep alignments. You want to run 2-eye safeties and concede something in terms of being +1 in the box? Well, get yourself Kyle Hamilton, who can trigger from 15 yards off the ball and fit the run. What are my concerns with Kyle Hamilton? I don't know, transitions. He's kind of high-hipped. And so when he has to transition from his pedal and flip his hips and run, maybe it's a little segmented. This guy's a really outstanding football player. My comp for him, Derwin James from the Los Angeles Chargers. Next up, Daxton Hill out of Michigan. 6'125", 191 pounds, 32.25-inch arms, an elite athlete. I love his versatility. I legitimately think he can play any position in the secondary at a high level, including outside corner, slot corner, free safety, strong safety. He can do it all. And not just do it, but I think he can perform any one of those functions at a high level. Extremely versatile defensive back. I love his play demeanor. He's super physical. He's a tone setter. He loves to tackle, play through contact. He's a physical, athletic player with good range and exceptional versatility. In terms of concerns, maybe you wish he had a little bit more bulk. He's a physical player, like I said. And so maybe you wish he was 200 pounds. But he's a really intriguing player. My comparison for him is Darnell Savage from the Green Bay Packers. Now, moving on to the second round, and I'll be honest with you, the first 2 guys that I'm going to list off here would not be surprised if they were first-round picks, and if the Bills want either one of these guys, they'd probably have to trade up to get them. If in terms of, they're not going to pick them at 57. I think they'll have to move up in the second round if they want to draft either of these players. Let's start with Jaquan Brisker. Penn State, 6'1 3/8", 199 pounds, 31.75-inch arms. He's an above average athlete. What do I like about Jaquan Brisker? I like his impact. Watch Penn State play. This guy has made some game-changing plays for them. And I remember watching just the TV copies while the games were happening live. The Wisconsin game, the Auburn game. He was exceptional. It's hard to feel a safety while watching a TV broadcast, but you can with Brisker. His impact is undeniable. He jumps off the tape. I think he's physical, fitting the run. I love his ball skills. I love his instincts. He's a great football player. My concern with Brisker is that his hips are a bit tight, which show up in his transitions. My comp for him, Jordan Poyer, Buffalo Bills. Next up is Lewis Seen out of Georgia, 6'2 and a quarter, 199 pounds, 32 and a quarter inch arms, an exceptional athlete. What do I like about Seen? He's a hammer, physical and explosive, tone setter on the back end. He's super rangy, and I love his ability to play through contact and be a physical tackler. My concern with Seen is that he just doesn't have top-tier ball skills. I think he's a guy that leaves a little meat on the bone when it comes to opportunities to make game-changing plays on the ball. My comp for him, Xavier McKinney from the New York Giants. Next up, Jalen Petrie from the Baylor Bears. 5'11", 198 pounds, 30 and 5/8 on the arm length. He's a sufficient athlete. What do I like about him? Well, I think he profiles very well as a slot safety that plays a lot in the box, exceptional at blitzing, very, very good tackler, plays through contact. He's a physical guy that I think you can play close to the line of scrimmage and in the slot. Love his trigger, and he's a really appealing rally tackler. Now, I just don't think he has great range and coverage. So if you're going to ask him to carry routes and man coverage down the field, that's probably not going to be his best trait. He's probably not going to be a guy that you love in one high looks as the center fielder. But with the NFL embracing more quick game and getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands very, very quick, that coverage range is a little bit less of an issue to me because he's such a good guy in terms of click and close and drive on the football and drive, on the ball carrier. And so while he may not be the ideal candidate to play in deep alignments or carry routes vertically, his ability to click and close and drive on the ball is very, very good. My comp for him, Brandon Jones from the Miami Dolphins. Third round targets for the Buffalo Bills. We'll start with Brian Cook out of Cincinnati. 6'3", 206 pounds, 31 and 7/8 inch arms. We won't have athletic testing numbers on him, but he appears to be a very good athlete on tape. I like his ability to key, diagnose, trigger, and tackle. He's one of those guys that he could fit the run from anywhere on the field. Love his versatility. They play him in a variety of spots, whether that's split zone, one high, in the slot, plenty of man coverage reps on tape. And I love his angles. He's a guy that I think takes precisely calculated angles. The concern with Brian Cook is that he's only a 14-game starter at Cincinnati. Boringly sound football player. Always in position, but never necessarily doing impact things. And I still think at this point he's a little bit more of a reactive player than an instinctive player. My comp from him, Sheldrick Redwine. Last player I'll get to, third-round target, Nick Cross out of Maryland. 6'8", 212 pounds, 31 and a half inch arms. He's an exceptional athlete. He's explosive. He's physical. He's one of those guys that will trigger from deep alignments and fit the run the alley, tackle, play through contact, all those things. Physical and coverage. I like his ball skills. This is a guy that I think can really make game-changing plays in the ball. He's got really good range, whether that's as a one-high safety working from the opposite hash and closing to the sideline, or coming downhill and running the alley. He's got great range. My concerns with Nick Cross is that responses can be a little bit tardy. He's got some false steps and needs to kind of figure out the economy of motion and how to get to places with more efficiency, with better angles. And he's got some over-aggressive tendencies that I think there's some give and take when it comes to Nick Cross. And he'll have to kind of sort that out and figure out what he can and cannot get away with. My comp for him, Avonte Maddox from the Philadelphia Eagles. So there you have it. My primer on linebackers and safeties for the Buffalo Bills in the 2022 NFL Draft. We addressed the needs, and we talked about the targets at each position in the first, second, and third round. Certainly hope you enjoyed this one. I always do love doing these positional primers. Tomorrow we'll get back to some mock drafts here on the podcast. So you have that to look forward. Don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.